It's that time again for a dash to come out of a vehicle. You guys love these videos and you're going to love this one. Let's get started. So what do you do when you live in Arizona and your dash is acting up and the flaps and things are all broken inside of it? You send it all the way to Kansas to get it fixed because the other shops are not trustworthy. That's sad. But I'm happy. I'm not sad. I'm happy to be able to take care of this for this customer. We already have the HVAC case out of this thing, and we're going to talk about some of the upgrades we're doing on that today, and how in the previous video you guys saw on the Chevy Silverado where it was a nightmare. There was literally, the truck bed was full of trim panels. You guys remember, it was literally heaping over with parts just to get to the HVAC box. That is not the case with these newer Dodges. This is a 2005 Dodge Ram with the Hemi. And Magic Mike actually did this one and he was pleasantly surprised. It really wasn't that bad. It doesn't have to be so bad, but Chevy sure made it bad on their earlier vehicles. So inside the HVAC box, there's different flaps with different actuators. Some of them control the temperature, some of them control whether it's floor, vent, defrost. There's some for recirculate and various different doors that do things. And you would think in certain climates, maybe if one breaks, you just don't even have to worry about it. Just stick it in one mode and leave it that way. But the thing is when these doors break, they break usually in the worst mode and they won't move anymore. They're stuck there. There's little plastic flaps inside and the actuators are connected to them with very cheap plastic little connectors. And they snap. It's very common on these Dodge Rams, and there's an actual fix for these. It's all the doors made out of solid aluminum. They will never break again. We'll show you guys what those look like here in a minute. This customer scheduled this quite a ways back, and I pre-ordered the metal doors, the upgrade for him. They're already here. We don't have to wait for ordering. He drove it all the way from Arizona here to, actually it's very cold now, cold in Kansas, and flew home. And when it's done, he'll fly back up here and drive his truck back home. Crazy D and I were talking one day in the office, and it's like, we never thought there would come a time where people are shipping their cars 5 states away to get their car fixed because you cannot trust the people all around you. I hear the stories all the time. People come in the shop. I took it to the shop. They charged me $3 grand. It's still not fixed. I took it to the dealer. They charged me $4 grand. It's still not fixed. And finally it comes here and it gets fixed. I get a lot of questions from people that ask, hey, I live in this city or that city. What's a good mechanic in the area? I don't know. I don't live in that area, firstly. And secondly, I really don't want to recommend anyone anymore based on what I hear of the experience of you guys out there in the world, in the United States. It's like a crapshoot, 50-50. You might get a good mechanic, you might not. Really crazy. So anyways, that's the story of this truck. That's why it's here. Let's go take a look at the inside of the interior. Are you guys ready for the carnage? I know you guys love the carnage. Here we go. Ta-da! With these vehicles, you put a protective carpet over the seats. You disconnect all the connectors, the wiring and everything, and unbolt the frame chassis from the interior, and it just gets pulled aside. Then you can reach right in, unbolt the HVAC box, evacuate the Freon, disconnect all the hoses and things, and pull it right out. Now, this obviously didn't happen in 15 minutes. This takes quite a while even to do this, but luckily it's not insane like that Chevy truck was. That was just crazy. So that is pretty scary. Imagine walking in on that and you say, hey, I need to get my key or something out of my car, and you open the door and you're like, oh my goodness. And the common question I've had when people actually do that is, can you actually put this back together? This scares the hell out of me. Yes, I've done probably 100 of them or more. So, but it does. I agree, it looks pretty scary. Let's head on over to the parts cart, which isn't very large this time around. So this is it. We don't have a truck bed full of parts or 6 different carts full of parts. We just have one cart. We have some pillar trim, some moldings and things down there on the bottom. Up here we have the knee bolster, some metal framework that's underneath the steering column. And up here we have the receiver dryer, the horn, the steering wheel. And this is the upgraded parts we'll show you here in a minute. That's pretty much it, and we'll go ahead and show you guys the engine bay. So here we are in the engine bay, and you can see the ECM has been unbolted and kind of laying aside, and there's several different other bolts and things that have to come out. You can see the AC lines where they go through the firewall. Also the heater hoses go through the firewall as well. Those all have to be disconnected before you can get inside and pull the HVAC box out. And these AC lines are notorious for being really, really hard to get apart, but Magic Mike did this. He did a really good job, and we got all that done very well without anything being damaged or broken. It went very, very well. Let's head on over to the actual HVAC box itself. So here it is. We have the HVAC box out. You can see here is the evaporator core. I've already removed the heater core, which is on the cart down there. This is our recirculate area, and the door that's supposed to be here, a little flap, is just gone. I don't know what happened here. There's supposed to be where this little knob is. It's been removed or whatever years ago. Not sure what happened there, but it is missing, but that's okay. We have new upgraded ones. But if you look right here, if I move this lever, you can see a flap moves. That one's not broken, but there's tons of these little flaps inside of here. This one is just a linkage to go to the flap. And if you look down in here, there are some more flaps. This white plastic piece here is the connectors that always break. This one's not broken either. It will be eventually because they usually all break. But these are the flaps I'm talking about. Now let me turn this thing over and I'll show you one that I did find that is broken. So here you can see where my finger is. There's a white connector that I showed you. I can turn it and nothing happens. And if you look in here, these flaps are completely just broken in there. They just flop around. This one broke in a mode that was blowing cold air all the time, and they live in Arizona in the mountains where it can get pretty cold, and they wanted some heat and it just wasn't giving them any heat. It basically said, I don't care if you want heat, you're not getting any. He did have this metal rod that he made himself. And somehow he had jammed this up in there enough to where it could get some heat out and they didn't freeze. And it did work. We won't be using that anymore, obviously. I'm going to go ahead and split this case in half and let you guys watch that. And we're going to pull the flaps out and compare them to the upgraded ones. So there we have it split in half. There is one flap right here that you can see, actually a couple of them. Those aren't broken, but they're going to be replaced. Here's our blower motor. Here we can have access to our evaporator core. We're going to get with the customer. We're pretty sure he's going to go for it, but this is not the time to be cheap and say, let's just reuse my old evaporator core. This is a time to go ahead and put new heater core, new evaporator core, new blower motor, and all new actuator motors because we have it all apart. Some of this stuff, if we skip it now and it leaks 6 months from now, the question will be, why didn't we address that when it was apart? And the answer to that would be, you didn't want to spend the money. So here we have one flap. You can see where the connector was. It completely just busted it into pieces. And the little tab that fit in the hole in the case is broken. This thing was just flopping around in there. This one seems kind of questionable, kind of floppy. It probably was on the verge of breaking. So we were missing the recirculate, and also this one was broken completely. And the rest, you can be rest assured that the rest were going to break as well. They always do. So this did not need a heater core or an evaporator core. There was nothing wrong with those. Just these, the flaps. And when they break, it basically disables your HVAC system. Let me get this little package over here and show you the upgrades. So here we have the upgraded parts, and you can see that it is solid aluminum. This isn't going to break. The actuator will break before these do. Here's our little pivot point here, And the little white plastic pieces that I showed you, they actually snap in to these plastic ones, and that's where they break. But these are metal. So you put the flap in, then this goes through the case and into the flap, and the actuator actually fits inside of here, and then it can turn the flap. No more breaky. So now we have the solution to all these broken doors, and when we go back together with these aluminum ones, it will very likely outlast the truck itself. So here we have all of our actuator motors. I have them numbered in case the customer doesn't want to get all new ones. They're typically 50 to 100 bucks a piece. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. It's very likely could add $400 to $500 to the total bill. It's easy on the phone to say, oh, those little motors, yeah, go ahead and put them all on, brand new. And then someone gets the bill and goes, $500 extra for these? Yeah. So be careful what you tell your mechanic sometimes, to go ahead and go for it. Sometimes these are only 40 bucks or something, but like this one with the metal casing and everything is probably going to be quite a bit more expensive. Here's our harness here. That runs all the actuators and the blower motor. And here's a little bottom shield. That red Chevy truck you guys saw recently, after we got done replacing everything in there, I mean the evaporator core, we did the heater core, all the motors and the labor, and you saw it took hours and hours. What was so tough about that one is the age of the vehicle. Back 10, 15 years ago when I was doing those as a mechanic, I could zip through them pretty fast because the vehicle was fairly new and the plastic was still pliable. But fast forward 10 or 15 years of age on the vehicle, and you get in there and start zipping around, and you'll bust and crack and break all the plastic in there. So you have to dial it way back and slow way down, which is going to add time. That was I think that was $4,000 to do that job because we replaced so many parts. This one will likely be $1,000 less because there's a lot less labor. You just literally just fold it back and do the job and get the thing out. These little metal doors for the whole set, $400 or $500. There's several different companies that make them. If you buy all new plastic ones, it's probably half that cost, but who wants to do that? I don't know. I mean, if you're going to do this job, do it right, put the metal ones in, and you're done. You don't ever have to think about that ever again. So we're going to go back together with all metal doors. We're waiting on the customer to see if we're going to get the go-ahead to replace all these items, because they're not bad. The heater core and the evaporator core are not bad right now. And it's strange to think, let's just take them out and put them in the scrap pile when they're still good. So that's always, I let the customer make that decision. If they choose to reuse their old parts, there will be annotated on the bill that that part will not be warranted because it's not new, it's the old one. One thing we could do is if the customer wants the old parts, like if we put new evaporator core, new heater core, and they want their old ones, they can have them. They use them for an emergency or something someday. But really, if you're going to pull it all back apart again, why would you put the used parts back in? You're probably going to go new all over again. So when this vehicle came in and Magic Mike started on it, I knew this would be a great video for you guys because I know you love to see carnage. You want to see things all torn apart, and I do too. It's kind of cool. But as you saw in this video, it's nowhere near what that red truck was. The 99, 2000, 2001 Chevys. The worst truck I've ever done, or the worst vehicle heater core I've ever done in my life, is the early 2000s, late 90s Ford F-Series, the F-150, the F-250. Not the Super Duties, just the normal F-Series. Those are even worse than what you guys saw on the red truck. You can tell there's a lot less parts out of the vehicle. It's just one cart full. We'll get these metal doors and everything back reassembled, and I'll have Magic Mike go ahead and get this thing back together. It's not that hard of a job as long as you put your mind to it and say, this isn't fun, but let's just go ahead and get it done and get it over with. And before you know it, it is over with. I really like the way Dodge did the dashes on these where they come out as a unit, not as 17,000 different pieces. So if you're curious what kind of tools we use to basically do open heart surgery on the interior of this truck, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. And make sure to hit the subscribe button because there's some updates that just happened on the bus today. And also, as soon as my gaskets come in, there's going to be some updates on the North Star engine. Thanks for watching.